book haul time. Time has passed. Books have been bought. We're going to talk about them. Wasting no time at all, first up we have Dragon Rider by Taran Matharu, which originally I looked at the cover and thought, that's cool, it's a dragon, but it's really grown on me. I really like the white. It just makes it really stand out. But anyway, this was the book club pick for the month of September, so we've been reading it over on the Discord. I am a little bit behind, however I do plan on finishing this either today or tomorrow. And I'm enjoying it. It's fine, but it's not really doing anything particularly original or drawing me in. The characters are okay, the plot's interesting, but I don't feel completely drawn into it yet. And I am probably 65-70% of the way through. I'm still having a good time with it, and I'm glad I bought it and read it. And so keeping on that trend, the October pick for the read along on the Discord is Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. So technically this has already begun, but I've not started it yet. I will be jumping into it the second I finish Dragon Rider. And I'm interested in this one. I don't really know anything about it. I've not really read into it. I've not read any T. Kingfisher before, but I know he's incredibly popular. And there's a chicken on the front. I'm sold. It seems to be a relatively short book, only about 300 odd pages, and very in tune with the fall season. So I'm looking forward to jumping into that very, very soon. Next on up, I was very kindly sent some books from some friends who just published recently. First off, we have An Exile of Water and Gold by Joshua Walker. And just look at that cover by the amazing Jeff Brown. It is absolutely stunning. And who doesn't love a big epic tree in fantasy? It's just one of those tropes. It's just always cool. But I do particularly like the colors in this cover. Just sort of this sort of sunset band in the middle and this sort of grey palette around it just really draws your eye. And it's a floppy paperback, which, you know, if you know, you know, it's the best format. I love fancy special editions and hardbacks, but floppy paperbacks are just legendary. So I'm really looking forward to reading this. I've heard nothing but good reviews, so I'm very excited, and hopefully I will be picking this up relatively soon. Talking about killer covers and books recently published by friends, we have A Dirge for Cassius by Callum Lott. Now, this is one of the most unique covers I have seen recently. There's a lot of killer covers right now with artists, but this one, I've just not seen anything like it. Very, very interesting. And it's quite rare that a book just completely screams out my name, but there is something about this sort of sci fantasy, very character driven, very heavy themes, I believe, as well. It's calling to me. So I'm really looking forward to picking up that one as well. I swear, if I could just pause time and read all these books, that would be great. Okay, next up, I have recently created a Vinted account. Now, this is not sponsored. It's just something that's been mentioned a lot on the Discord. There's a lot of really great deals on secondhand books. And I got into it this month, which was a mistake. But I did pick up a couple gems, including Something Wicked This Way Comes, which I've not read yet, and I already have a copy of. But look at the cover. It's one of the best covers I have ever seen. Oh man, I'll put up some B-roll, but it's just ridiculous. And I love it in every single way. But this is one of those books I've been meaning to read since last year. Autumn fall season. It was recommended in my Booktubers Recommend Spooky Books video that I did. Daniel recommended this one, and I've just only heard good things about it. It sounds very atmospheric, so I need to read it this year. I need to fit it in. And now I have this awesome, ridiculous edition. It just makes me smile every time I see it. I love it so much. It's great. I also bought a set of books over on Vinted. If you've been watching the channel for a while, you probably will have seen my Ultimate Must-Reads top 10 video that I did, where I talked about the top 10 most recommended fantasy books I see personally. And one of the common trends in the comments was it's skewed towards more modern fantasy books, which completely makes sense, because if it's most recommended, a lot of people recommend what's current and fresh, but they don't always talk about the old classics. So I worked my way through the comments, and by far, the most recommended series on the entire list was Thomas Covenant, The Unbeliever. Now, I hadn't heard of this series. It was complete ignorance, because this is a huge series, but it's just a series I don't see many people talk about. My friend Cams Campbell, who has a channel on YouTube, he did a sort of deep dive into the series, but other than that, I've not really seen anyone talk about it. But I kid you not, there were hundreds of comments recommending this series on that video. So I bought it. I'm going to give it a go, probably not this year. However, I got all 6 books. It was a ridiculously cheap deal. I think they're going for £1 each or something like that. So I thought, while I see them, I'm just going to grab them. And hopefully I love it as much as everybody else seems to. But if you've read it, let me know, and let me know if you enjoyed it. Next on up, I did get books 2 and 3 in the Greenbone Saga from Broken Binding. So I'm pretty sure I included Jade City in the last haul. But since then, I did get Jade War and Jade Legacy. Personally, I'm a little mixed on the first cover, but I do love the illustration covers for books 2 and 3. I think they're absolutely stunning. And the mosaic sprayed edges, I know they can be a bit decisive because they are so unique and very much their own thing that we've not really seen much before. But I personally love them. I really like the edges. Especially when you're reading it and you don't have the dust jacket on because you're not a monster. Because who reads with the dust jackets on? You do get these stunning naked hardback designs, very minimalist, and it really draws your eye to the mosaic sprayed edges. I absolutely adore these books. I have read Jade City and Jade War. I do need to still read Jade Legacy. I've been putting it off, and I'm concerned about this last book. I mean, the cover itself is a funeral scene, so it's not a good start, and I've not even opened the book yet. But I do plan on reading this, hopefully before the end of the year. Next on up, we have Service Model by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Now this, first of all, we'll talk about the book. The book design is actually really cool. I like this. I thought it was very cyberpunk vibe to it, especially with the landscape in the background and this hand with this cracked teacup. It gives a very unique tone that definitely carries through to the text itself. So it was the cover that really drew me to this. I will say, don't go into this expecting a cyberpunk. That was kind of an assumption on my part that was wrong. However, this Broken Binding does have these beautiful sprayed edges that feels very cyberpunk as well. As for the book, it's really interesting. It is about a robot called Charles who's looking after its master, and then its master dies. And this throws Charles into this sort of bizarre, dystopian, but also very funny tale of this robot trying to comprehend and sort of compute what it has to do next. However, personally, I don't know if it just wasn't the book for me right now. I probably made it a third in, and then I ended up DNFing it. I may come back, but because Charles is a robot and doesn't have much of a personality, it personally wasn't a big draw for me, because I wasn't that interested to see where it's going. It didn't feel like it had this huge upcoming arc, and even the plot itself does feel meandering, but it is meant to be meandering. I think you do need to be in a very specific mood to read this book. Next on up, we have a tome that I'm not sure if I want to throw up because it's really big. Okay, we'll just throw it a wee bit. The Doors of Midnight by R.R. Verdi, which is the sequel to the first binding. And this is the Broken Binding edition, which means it has black sprayed edges with this really cool candle design. Now, I've not read the first binding yet, however, I have high hopes for it because I love the prose style. I did read the first chapter or two of the first binding right when it first came out, and I adore the prose. It's very much beautifully written, and I love the covers as well. The covers are stunning for both first binding and the Doors of Midnight. These are absolute tomes. They are huge books, but if you know me, most of my favorite books are huge tomes, so it definitely doesn't put me off. It has me very excited, but I do want to kind of clear my TBR and make time for a series like this and just kind of give it the breathing space. I don't feel like I need to fly through it so I can get on to the next book on my TBR. I do want to just kind of enjoy the ride of reading these books. Next on up, we have The Last Shield by Cameron Johnston. This was very much a cover buy. I saw the Broken Binding edition, I saw the cover, and I bought it. The design on the front with this beautiful dragon skull, kind of this abstract sketched style that I really like. Not to mention the green foiling for the title and also some detailed edges around the dragon. It's got this cool, almost Celtic-like design on the sprayed edges, and a similar sort of design on the naked hardback. Now, I did go to the launch party for The Last Shield while I was at Worldcon. I met the author, he was really nice, got to meet some of the industry people there at the party as well. So I do kind of have some memories attached to this book despite the fact I've not read it yet. I did include it in a new release video that month, and one of the things that did draw me to it was the comparison to Die Hard. It does feel like it will be a very short, action-packed little adventure, and it is fairly short a read. A fun read with a beautiful cover. How can one say no? And on the complete other end of the spectrum, we have some chunky books. Those are the Dandelion Dynasty Midnight editions from Broken Binding. Now, I've been wanting to read this series for ages. It just gets so many good reviews from so many different people that I'm really intrigued to give this one a go. And when I saw these editions from Broken Binding, I knew I had to grab them. I do love the original editions that they have in the sort of standard teal turquoise warm editions, and I am kind of mad that I didn't grab those when they're on sale. I was one of the people who was badgering them about doing the midnight editions, and I must say I'm delighted. They look absolutely incredible, especially the sprayed edges. I do love the sprayed edges. This is another one of those series I know I'm going to love and want to binge, which is partly why I've not read them yet, because I really want to make space on my TBR just so I can give it that time that I think this series will demand. Occasionally I get a series like Dungeon Crawler Carl that's a complete out of the blue, can't believe how much I loved that, and I just scrap everything and focus on that one series. But other times I have something like Hob when I know I'm going to love it and I want to create the time to enjoy those books and not rush through them. So Dandelion Dynasty is definitely one of those series that I want to give it the time. So because of that, I'm not sure when I'm going to get to it. I am trying to be a lot more conscientious about finishing series. I have so many series that I just start and I'm terrible at finishing. So I do want to do a big focus on kind of finishing off a lot of the core series that I'm started or more than halfway through, and then pick up series like Dandelion Dynasty. Especially with some of my TBR plans for next year. I'm already kind of looking at some of the big series I want to attempt, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. So I want to finish off some series so I can do things like that. However, if you are somehow still looking for new fantasy books, I got you covered with my own book, Harbinger of Justice. This is a dark epic fantasy book with ancient Egyptian influence, and you can also read the prequel novella Silence is Silver completely for free by signing up to my mailing list. Link is in the description. And I'm starting to mention this again because book 2 is almost done, and I'm excited about it. I'm just so excited about it. I love the book. I think it turned out great. Beta readers seem to really enjoy it, so I'm going to be insufferable, and I'm sorry. But thank you very much for watching. But at least I gave you a heads up.